Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to Houselights, specifically House of Fincher. And you may be scratching your heads thinking, whoa. You did House of Fincher a long time ago. You kind of started this show as House of Fincher and then moved on to other directors. Well, we're revisiting the fantastic David Fincher with The Killer from 2023 and taking a break from Roland Emmerich's films. And this week, joining me is John Mills, and we are sans Darren Moser today. Darren Moser is on vacation. And so both John and I thought it would be a great idea to go back and continue the House of Fincher. And John, like this, even though this came out last year, you call yourself a David Fincher fan, but yet you just saw this for the first time yesterday.
I did see this film, The Killer, for the first time. It is, as we frequently talk about, it's been on the to-watch list for a long time, but then it falls out of your queue, and then somebody else is like, oh, you got to watch this, or then we're in a different house for Houselights, or anything like that, and it's like it just keeps sort of like knocking it down, and so it's unintentional. Now, you could very much throw that in my face and say, well, would you let a Christopher Nolan movie slip by like that? And I can tell you no, but no specifically because he still releases those in the theaters in such a way that it's easy. Like that's an experience to go after. When it's streaming, if you don't get it while it's hot out of the oven, it's gone really fast. And so The Killer has been on my playlist or my to watch list for a long time. It's just continually getting crushed down. So I'm thrilled actually to come back to the House of Fincher because it's been a while. And Davey Boy, I was curious to see how this would play out.
Because his movie before this was Mank, which was also for Netflix, because he signed a 4-year deal with Netflix and he's released 2 movies under that 4-year deal, starting in 2020 with Mank. Well, he signed it in 2020, I think. I can't remember when Mank came out. It might have been 2020. But yeah, this was written by his longtime companion and writing partner Andrew Kevin Walker. And it stars Michael Fassbender, Tilda Swinton, and Charles Parnell. And this was based off of the French comic The Killer that came out, I think, in 2007. And Fincher himself was such a huge fan of the comic, he immediately got the filming rights and said, I'm going to do this. And so he's been wanting to make this into a movie since 2007. And of course, I mean, I bet you can guess who he wanted to play the killer in 2007. You have 2 guesses. One of them is wrong.
Oh my gosh! In 2007, Brad Pitt.
Yep, it was Brad Pitt. That's who it was going to be.
Okay. Yes. All right.
I don't even know why you faked.
I feel proud.
Folks at home, he put his hand on his head, like, oh, let me think. You knew the answer. You knew the answer.
Well, no, I didn't know for sure. I legitimately didn't know for sure. Pitt popped up immediately, and then I doubted myself, and I was like, well, wait a minute, it can't, that's too you ever get like the flash of the obvious where you're like, okay, that's too obvious an answer. But yeah, no, Pitt would make, that's immediately a version, and this is no slight on Fassbender at all. Mm-hmm. That's immediately a version where I'm like, ooh, I'm curious now, because I can hear these lines in Pitt's voice, and I'm like, that's an interesting movie. That's really, really interesting.
I am thinking about it, and I have thought about it ever since I learned that fact that he wanted Pitt to do it, and then Pitt read the script, or at least the concept, like he talked about the concept and read the comic, and Pitt thought it was too nihilistic for him. And that's amusing for a guy who, played Tyler Durden.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say Time Out, Fight Club. Hello? Like, did he not watch all the way to the end of that movie or something? Like, did he not? Okay. All right. That's fine.
But the thing is, though, I think Fassbender brings about kind of a cold, calculated, emotionless vitality to the role that I don't think Pitt would do. I'm not saying he couldn't do it, but I don't know if we've ever seen Pitt do that before. Now, he could have done something equally great and different, but I really liked that quality that Fassbender brought. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think that Pitt would have been different, but I see in Fassbender's performance him picking much more on what Fincher would be laying down in this movie, where this guy, what Fassbender is really good at with his physicality in this is that he's really good at sort of folding in on himself when necessary. For instance, when he's coming down in the elevator after killing the lawyer, he has this really good way of being noticeably unobtrusive in such a way where you can tell he's looking at you from under the brim of his hat, but not in a way that's going to make you look up from your phone necessarily. And I thought that was really, in terms of his physicality, I think Pitt would have been more, there would have been more, I don't know what to say, more stiffness to him. Not stiffness. There would have been more noticeability to him. There would have been more presence to him, whereas Fassbender does a really good job of folding in on himself.
I get that. I get that. Like he can, yeah. I think you put it well. You were searching for the words, but I think you put it well. And I love that he even talks about that in the narration about how he called it his camo, and he based his camo off of a German tourist he once saw.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Have you seen Entrapment with?
No, I haven't.
That's right. You haven't. That's why I remember there was something about it with you.
Yeah.
But in Entrapment, like you have Sean Connery who looks like the Rock Sean Connery. You know, he's got the toupee. He looks good, looks vital. But when he tries to blend in, and like when he's like doing a heist and everything like that, he blends in like Michael Fassbender in The Killer. Like I think he even wears like the bowl hat like Fassbender, and like has a camera around his chest. So he looks like an embarrassing tourist when he's trying to blend in, like the opposite of James Bond. And it was just really cool and funny to see. And to see that repeated, and I don't mean that as a slight, but it was very reminiscent in The Killer. And I don't feel like Pitt would have done that. Like we see Pitt as an assassin a couple of times in his career, and I think like even in this latest one where he's on a train, I think it might even be called Bullet Train, you know, even though he's dressed simply, or at least not like a stereotypical spy or assassin that you would see in the movies, he still looks like Brad Pitt. Like he's still like he's there, he's on the screen.
I will also say, in all honesty, that where this movie really benefits from Fassbender being in it is Fassbender has previous experience in a fantastic close quarters martial arts movie. That one he did with Soderbergh. Gina Carano was in it. It was years and years ago. And he was in that one. And I think that pays off here because he very obviously, like the fight scene plays so incredibly well. And I think you need to be a really good, a really accomplished actor in terms of that physicality, right? When you see Brad Pitt fight on screen, yeah, they do the fancy hand and leg and kicking combos and everything like that. But Fassbender actually comes across as a guy who knows these moves and moves in such a way that I believe him as somebody who fights like this. It doesn't look staged. That's what I'm sort of reaching for.
The movie's called Haywire.
That's the one. It's been so long since I saw it.
I just looked it up. I can't believe I never seen it. It's Soderbergh and Fassbender. I've never seen it. That's going onto the queue.
I remember enjoying it.
Cool.
It. And the fight scenes were really good in that. Like that was the whole selling point, was the fight scenes were really good.
I definitely want to talk about some of the fight scenes because you brought it up. There's a lot to talk about, but I do want to talk about the fight scenes because they're few and far between. And they're pretty, if you think about it, there's really just the one. There's really just the one fight scene. It's the big fight scene that takes place in Florida. And I want to know what you think about that. Like you talked about his movement style, and I like that his movement was different than obviously the brute as they called him. Like this huge Maori guy. Did you think that fight went too far? Didn't go far enough?
Oh,
What did you think about it? being the only fight in the movie.
That fight scene I thought was magnificently staged. And I can tell you it was magnificently staged specifically because I heard no reports of somebody accidentally breaking a leg or anything like that. And when you're doing a fight scene like that, that is key. And I think that it was brilliantly staged specifically because Fassbender, you can see, is really technically proficient and he's out of his weight class. And the Brute doesn't need the finesse that he does. And so it becomes a fascinating fight scene because too many times with these types of fight scenes, they're too evenly matched. And it's evenly matched and it's like, okay, it's the chess game and then there's going to be the one thing. Whereas this, I was legitimately afraid for his character because I was like, it doesn't matter how good he is. This guy can literally break him in half he can just wear him down and break him in half. In terms of quote unquote going too far, there is a moment, and you know the moment, where the guy fell onto the broken leg of the table where I had to look away because I was like, oh my God. Like that was Fincher doing it to me again, where I was like,
And he's just kind of dangling there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, come on, man. Why are you going to like Fincher's too good, but that's what makes it so fascinating is that type of stuff would happen in a fight like this. And it's like, so like it actually lends this air of realism to it. The fact that the guy got up and moved afterward, I don't know. But, maybe he's too roided up to notice. I mean, how did it play for you? Because did it go too far? Although I will say before you answer, the one interesting note is Fincher goes too far with that thing. And, the fight scene goes on for a while. Even David Fincher is too afraid to kill the dog.
I was going to say, like, it's so funny that I was like, it would have been super easy for him. Like, I thought that they were going to go that way because when he heard the dog coming, I was like, oh, you can just pop him one and then, threat over. But he ran away and slammed the fence shut, which is really interesting to me because I felt like in that moment, you're just like, oh yeah, like, you can't kill the dog. Even though, David Fincher literally began House of Cards killing a dog. You have that movie logic of like, you don't kill the dog unless it's absolutely necessary, unless it's like a violent vampire dog or something like that, or something that you'd see in, like in a horror movie. But we've already lost, I feel like as a protagonist, even though, like, okay, so if you from a morally you can't get on board with an assassin, you either accept the premise and the profession, or you don't. You're just like, that's his profession. He's a killer. Is he a good killer? Is he a bad killer? Like, I'm talking about movie logic here. And I feel like you lose any sympathy for him when he kills the taxi driver.
Yes, I agree.
I think in that moment you're like, oh, okay, man, there was no real reason to kill that guy. Like, he didn't do anything bad to you. Like he was just the taxi driver. Like, he wasn't involved. He was tertiarily involved at best. And he kills him. And I'm like, okay, well, that's who he is. That's who the killer is. He's a killer and he doesn't want any loose ends. Fine. I'm not rooting for you, but there you go. But up until that point, he was dealing with either bad people or just an assignment. That wasn't his assignment, nor was that taxi driver a bad person. So anyway, long story short, so when the dog came up, I thought he was just going to pop him one because we already lost faith in him.
Right.
But I guess for some people, it'd be like, oh, wait, kill all the taxi drivers you want, but leave the dogs alone.
Let me turn that on its head, though, because as we're talking about it, Fincher always gets good performances out of his actors. And I think that taxi driver did a great job because I felt for him. He made me feel empathy for him. But I will offer that there's no way the person didn't know that something funky was going down, sort of thing. And so I wouldn't go so far as to call him a good person. If two people matching the Maori guy and Tilda Swinton are like, just wait here, and they go off and it's been a while, I'm probably driving away because I'm freaked out at that point. If I'm a quote unquote good person. I'm like, there's absolutely nothing positive. I probably can't stop what's happening, but I can at least drive off to the police and be like, I think you should probably head out that way. I mean, maybe there's something I don't understand about it. Maybe they needed more dialogue establishing that the cabbie was like, and you can't go to the cops here because they were already paid off. I was about, I think that his dialogue could have been shored up to support more, that he felt more trapped, that there was no real free will involved in that moment. I still think it's crappy what the killer does, but I can understand somebody getting to the reasoning of saying, no, you made a choice to stay there. If you had left, that would indicate remorse, reconsideration, regret, any of a number of things.
That's assuming he knew what was going down, though. Like going from
true. Okay, fair point. Fair point.
It's like I feel like there's a big gap between they can't be doing anything good to they're beating a woman half to death and they're going to try to murder someone. Like there's a big difference between knowing exactly what's going on and having a vague postulation that something bad is going on.
Well, let me ask you this question. If she had been killed as a part of the plot, would that change your view of how he dispatched the driver?
No, I don't think so. Because I feel like I honestly believe that this is just a personal thing. I feel like the taxi driver honestly was blameless. I mean, he talked about how like we're not in America here. He's talking about how I wanted to eat. I was starving. Like like I needed the fare, and like I'm freaked out. Like the brute freaked me out. I knew should kept on a leash. It was insane. And then I'm waiting there for an hour, like I don't know what to do. I should have left and everything like that. So I feel like he obviously, because there's a dude in his cab with a gun pointed at him, he knows something bad went down. But
yeah,
I don't think he knew anything beyond that.
I see. The thing is, I think we're both agreeing the cabbie shouldn't have bought it that way. And but it does establish immediately that the killer has no empathy. Mm-hmm. And I think it brings us back to the point of that's why it's odd that he doesn't kill the dog.
Yeah, we talked for a long time in a circle for that exact reason. It's just like he's clearly a sociopath, and and I feel like you have to be in order to be a good assassin like him. And I think Fincher even. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say you're essentially a serial killer who makes money at it.
Yeah, you're a serial killer who isn't defined as a serial killer, but instead of doing it for pleasure, you do it for money. It's it's a fine line, and there's a few other fine lines in other professions like that. But so to completely go back to what we were talking about with the fight, I felt like the fight went on too long.
Really?
Because yes, I did. Because I did like the fight. I did. I liked it. I thought it was well choreographed. I really like how it was shot. It was dark, but you never had to guess what was going on. Like Fincher loves his realistic lighting, but this was never a point when you're like, I don't know what's happening. Like I remember I think it was either I don't know if it was in Bourne Identity or Bourne Ultimatum, but Matt Damon was fighting some guy who had his exact same haircut, exact same build, and the exact same coat as him. And they were completely backlit, standing up against a window with blinds. And you're like, I have no idea who's fighting who.
Yeah. Right. Who should I be rooting for right here?
Yeah. And you do not have to guess that with the difference in size from Sala Baker and Michael Fassbender. So I did like that. I wish that Fassbender got hit less. I'm not saying that Fassbender should have hit the brute more, but I think Fassbender should have been hit less. Because I feel like with the brute mainly, like I think you talked about it well, where like it doesn't matter how good of a fighter you are. If you're going up against somebody that huge and that strong, they can end you. They don't need to be a good fighter. But with Fassbender being a good fighter, being slim, and being wily, 2-3 punches, maybe even less than that, you're out. You're done with that guy hitting you.
I'm going to counter you on this, because I think that's where Fincher wisely shows him changing in that in the gas station, because when he takes his shirt off and you see how cut he is, I think that sort of carries through to that scene, because it's like he's dressed very drab, sort of like skinny dude, but you know that underneath that is like he's basically just, to borrow from Fight Club, carved out of wood sort of thing. And so that's why I bought the punishment that he took. Is it excessive? I guess in my brain, any movie fight like this is excessive.
Well, I think that's the thing. It's a movie fight. I mean, it's a great movie fight. And I think the only reason why I'm being hypercritical of it is because this movie is steeped in so much quote unquote realism than most spy thrillers. And I think that's probably why I'm much more critical of it, because, like, of course, there's a lot of things where you're just like, no, it's not that easy to have multiple passports. No, it's not that easy to have multiple identities. No, it's not that easy to get on a plane without biometric scanning. No, it's, like there's totally so many things you have to, like negotiate within your own mind in order to have an entertaining movie. And Fincher made an entertaining fight, but it's just, I think, after the 3 punches in the face and then an uppercut right at the beginning, I'm like, oh, he's out, possibly dead now. But then he just keeps taking hits. I don't care how muscular you are underneath. You take one hit to the chin and you move your head too far to the left and you're unconscious.
Yes, I'll give you that. Yes, the uppercut is that's lights out. But if you don't go lights out, I mean, all right, you're pretty tough. But what I realize is we're talking about this and, it's a movie fight, it's over the top and everything like that. What I really realize is we're actually talking about David Fincher's first comic book movie, right? So it makes sense that the fight is over the top, because I could see this in a superhero, like a Marvel film, where like, you have to sort of like just feel like, yeah, okay, he's going to take way more punishment than a human being can. That's fine.
I actually just purchased the comic book. I'm gonna read it this weekend, because I've never read it before. But yeah, like I said, I was like, I'm sure there's some people listening who are rolling their eyes at me, talking about this and that and about how it's not realistic. And I totally get it. It's a movie fight. I should shut up and just enjoy it, and I did. But there was just a bit, just a bit too much, because. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. Maybe because I fell off a ladder, a few months ago or last summer. And like, I was out, man. I was out for like a week and I just fell off a ladder. And like Fassbender fell off a ladder like 10 times in that fight. Like,
yes. But I think what you're getting at, you're fixating on the fight scene. But I would say that the movie as a whole, a lot of its scenes go a little bit longer than I think they need to. It breathes a little too much.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the rhythm. Let's talk about the pacing, because one thing that I thought was very distinctive was, and I hate using the phrase, I hate using this phrase, because the legacy of Rian Johnson has ruined this phrase. But this movie very much subverts expectations when it comes to what to include and what not to include in a movie. Like right off the bat, opening scene takes a long time. And he talks about the boredom of being an assassin. And so you feel that boredom with him while it's still being entertaining. That's a hard thing to do. And in a normal movie, he would have killed his target. It would have gone flawlessly, and it would have been done within the first 5 minutes, maybe less. And the second job is the one that would have gone wrong. This one, first job we see him, he screws the pooch. And then when he flies back home, it's not just a dissolve to the Dominican Republic. No, we see him every single step of the way, go to the airport, go to the bathroom, drop off his material, change his flight, get to the hotel, get the rental car, go to his home. And then when he gets to his home and we see everything has gone crazy, we're like, okay, we're going to see a hand-to-hand fight. Nope, it's all aftermath. He's not involved in this whatsoever. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying, and I will offer that I don't have any problem with what you're saying, because you always talk about like macro versus micro. I'm talking about this movie is, for Fincher, it's pretty tight. It's an hour and 58 minutes, which for him, I'm proud of him. I'm very proud of him, because he really sub 2 hours. Hey, Davey, I appreciate you. But I think that there are certain moments. Now, can I sit there and recite them to you? But there are moments where I actually appreciate showing the long trek because it demonstrates how insanely meticulously fastidious he is about everything. And the opening, I thought, was fantastic. Fincher, master craftsman, with the way he frames the shots, with the way it's edited together, with the music that's chosen or not chosen, the periods of silence to emphasize the boredom necessary in it, and also the routine, all of that stuff I'm talking about as it goes on. There are just the sense to me is that there were moments where, like, and I'm talking about micro stuff where it's like, it feels like, a scene here or there could have been 30 seconds less or a minute less, where, like, I feel like this is so close to exactly what it's trying to be, but it just needs to tighten just ever so slightly. And so here I am whining. It's like, oh, well, how many minutes do you think should come off? I'm not saying like it's 15 minutes off. I'm saying like it's an hour and 58. It feels like it should be like an hour and 55. For some reason, it feels like that 3 minutes would make a difference to me. I don't know why, but it does. It just feels like that would make a difference to me.
Once we got to Chicago,
Yeah.
that's when we're like, okay, like maybe we should have wrapped it up before then. Maybe we should have combined the expert and the client together in some fashion. I really like the Chicago stuff. I really like the client stuff. Like that's some of my favorite stuff. That's some of my favorite parts are in the Chicago stuff, the Chicago scenes. But from a story standpoint, once you get to that point, it feels. I think the thing is that it's a weird structure because it's a 5-act structure, or at least it feels like a 5-act structure, which is a very famous television structure. And I think Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was 5 acts as well. So we've seen Fincher go to that and go to it well. But for some reason, it felt weird because with the lawyer mixed in, you didn't have that 3-part revenge of like, okay, well, he killed the lawyer, and then he went on and killed the brute. Then he went on to kill the expert. Well, in movie logic, usually it's like, okay, 3 and you're done. Like, now I'm not saying this is a hard and fast rule. Nobody tweet me or message me about that. I'm just saying, like, having that client at the end felt like a tack on, but it was a really long tack on.
I will offer this, that you can keep everybody that you're talking about. Dolores feels like the misstep there. I feel like you could have had Dolores be the secretary who isn't that observant, maybe is oblivious to what her lawyer boss is doing. And that's why she when she's leaving, she's the one that lets him in, sort of thing. And, that's what I'm not going to try to rewrite the movie, obviously, but that's the point where I think it loses a little bit of focus. And that's probably what would have alleviated all of my complaint. It would have tightened it up that much more, because then there's even that moment where it feels like he's going to let her go and it's going along, and then he snaps her neck and she goes down the stairs. And I'm like, that's the one that felt superfluous. That's the one.
It's interesting. I think you're right. I feel like that would have been the easiest way to trim it down from a story standpoint, is to get rid of Dolores. Again, even though I really liked that segment, and I liked the things that happened, because Carrie O'Malley, her performance was fantastic.
Yeah,
I
it was.
love that in that moment when she's tied up in the bathroom, she knows she's going to die. She doesn't think she's going to die. She knows she's going to die. And in that moment, she's like, okay, I'll give you what you want. I know what you can do, but just, like, I can't just disappear. Like, my kids need my life insurance. Just make it look like an accident. It's just, it's that scary, scary moment. And I really, I think that scene altogether, I think the lawyer and Dolores, it kind of gave me Zodiac vibes, the way it was played out, where it was so cold and it was so abrupt. We were like, oh my God, he actually did it. Oh, he just put 3 nails in his chest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and he's still trying to talk to him. Like even though he had the nail gun, you're like, oh, okay, like he's gonna like do his like put it through his hand or something, and he already did it through the computer. Like, but no, boom, like in the chest. I remember seeing that, and I think literally saying out loud, "Oh my God!" Like,
Right.
like it
Yes.
totally took me off guard. And so it was just one of those really chilling, violent moments that I like that Fincher gives. And Dolores was another one of those moments where on a psychological level, it was terrifying. Where with the lawyer, it was the physical. With Dolores, it was the psychological. But if you wanted to make this movie tighter, if you wanted the Chicago stuff and the client not to feel like so much of a tack on, you could have cut it down there.
Well, and the thing is, because, and again, forgive me, we all know that we love to indulge in like, oh, well, maybe there's a way. Maybe if there was even a way to combine Dolores as the expert so that it's a surprise at the end where he's like, I found her, I tracked her down, and he walks in and it's Dolores sitting there and he's like, of course. Like the lawyer did all of this stuff, but like she was the, that close to him sort of thing still tightens things up. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think that speaking about all of this stuff, the thing I struggle with most with all of the stuff we're talking about is there is unquestionably an absolute master craftsman at work in this film. You and I, we both love Fincher's work. I admit it took me so long to see The Killer. You're obviously a bigger Fincher fan than I am. I mean, I'm just not devoted enough. I need to own up to that, obviously.
Yeah, that wasn't in question.
I think that what I struggle with is at the end of it, and I even said this to myself about halfway through, was what are you trying to say? With Fight Club, I get what he's trying to say. With Benjamin Button, I get what he's trying to say. With Mank, I struggled the same way where I was like, what are we trying to say here? Like, I get that it's the story of this, but I'm like, okay, you're cynical about the industry that you work in. Okay, I'll work with that sort of thing. But even you go all the way back to Alien 3, it's obvious what he's trying to say with that, about the struggle against mortality and all of those sorts of things. I come out of this and I'm like, it's a really well-made thing, but I don't walk away from it being like, man, that was deep. I got to think about that. And that's disorienting for me with these last 2 movies we've watched with Fincher, is I'm used to having something to chew on. Even famously where I had the problems with Benjamin Button, I've since gone back mentally and I'm like, I got to rewatch that. I think maybe I was just in a bad mood when I watched that at the time. It happens sometimes, as cheery and positive as I seem to be. But like, I think that, I mean, what's he really trying to say here? I mean, even with the narration and everything, it's like, and I'm not talking about what the character says. I'm not talking about what the character says. The point is, I'm like, you walk out of this and it's like, what did you, Tristan, walk away with at the end of this? What were you thinking about other than that was really well made?
Honestly, I know this kind of sounds like a cop out, but I think that's what it is. I think the killer, as in the protagonist, has an idea of what this was about and talked about it. And then you have what the movie actually is. And I think it's a well-crafted spy thriller. I think it's a well-crafted spy thriller made for adults. And I think that's the long and short of it. It's well-crafted, it's entertaining, and it tells you a story from beginning to end. And you were entertained, while you watched it. I think there's no deeper meaning beyond that. From a macro perspective, from the protagonist's perspective, I think it was his discovery of who he thought he was and who he found out who he was towards the end of the film, where at the beginning he's talking about how you got to do this, you got to do that. I don't care. I don't give an F. Think about all the people that die every second. Think about all the people who are born every second. Like, what I do does not affect those numbers whatsoever. He's able to logic himself out of all of it. And he keeps saying, it's like, don't react. You gotta, plan, improvise, things like that. Like he keeps talking about his mantras and mentioning his mantras and everything like that. And talking about how, like you can't be one of the many, you have to be one of the few who can do this and live like this without any attachments or without anything like that. And then we find out that he does have an attachment, and that he's not, it's not so much revenge for himself because they went after him and because he got burned. I think it was the reason why he went home was because he wanted to go back to um, his girlfriend, and that's the entire reason he went back home. Where like the lawyer was even saying like, I had no idea you'd go back home. Like I gave this insurance thing to the client just to appease him, and like they, like and everything like that. And so, but he went back home because his girlfriend was there. And so at the very end of the movie, when he lays down next to her, he says, you could be one of the few or one of the many like me. He's talking about how like, yeah, he has a
Yeah.
nihilistic viewpoint of the world, but he finds out that no, like he has something to live for. He has something to look forward to, and it's with her. Again, I'm not saying that's what the movie is about. I think that's what the protagonist thinks the movie is about.
Okay. Yes. I maybe something I struggle with then is that Fassbender does such a great job of being so dispassionate that maybe what I needed to really connect and plug in more to the character is give him a moment of breaking a little bit when he sees her, even if he has to go walk out of the room and you see like emotions start to take over and then you see him like flip a switch and he's like, can't do that. I got to take care of business.
Mm-hmm.
And then the journey at the end, when he comes back, he's like, oh yeah, I guess I did care. Like maybe that's what would have made it resonate more with me, because I agree with you about what the protagonist sees, but I guess maybe I boxed myself in because I was expecting to walk away with this as like Fincher making a statement about something. But to your point, he's not making a statement. He's telling a story, and that's it. So maybe that's my own fault for going in with that expectation, which got subverted. So
I don't think that's I don't think that's a bad expectation to have. I shouldn't say bad. I shouldn't say, I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation to have, especially coming from one of the greatest, filmmakers of his generation. Like, what is this movie going to say? And I don't say that lightly. I'm not just saying that as a Fincher fan, that it's objectively true, not just subjectively, but it's, I totally get you. And I think that's the thing, is that like it's extremely subtle what the protagonist even thinks this is about. If it wasn't for that last line, none of what I described would have landed whatsoever. And it was just that one line and then that weird twitch at the end. I think Fincher talked about the protagonist being a misdiagnosed autistic adult. And when described, he said, is like, if I did this in 2007, people wouldn't have gotten it. But in 2023, people are like, oh yeah, I get that. And I don't know if I completely agree with that. I mean, like, I think I think he's a I don't think he's autistic. I think he's a sociopath. And he's a meticulous sociopath. And I think, autistic individuals, just because they're autistic doesn't make them sociopaths or anything like that at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This was just one line taken from an interview, so he might have expanded on that a whole bunch more. So who knows exactly what he meant when he said that, but that's one way of looking at it.
Totally shifting gears, I wanted to ask your opinion about all of the TV character references with his false identities.
Oh,
did that land
the
for
Archibald
you?
Bunker.
Yeah, was that an eye roller for you, or did it get a chuckle from you each time?
It was a little bit of an eye roller, but it wasn't in your face. I wasn't like, oh, this is so stupid. Like, it didn't take me out of it. Where it's just like, there was a few times when I was just like, I feel like a real person, a real assassin in his place wouldn't do that, because it would draw too much attention. It would bring up unneeded conversation.
You'd get somebody like us. It's like, Felix Unger. Are you kidding?
Are you kidding me?
What are the odds? Right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you'd have to go like way deeper cut than George Jefferson. You'd have to like use Jefferson's neighbor's name or something like that. But then the audience doesn't get it.
Or like the creator of the Jeffersons, something like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like,
I think that was Norman Lear, so I don't think you can
that
use
wouldn't
his
work.
name either.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. Like that's the thing.
Oh,
Like from
Mr. Aaron Spelling, seat ready for Mr. Aaron Spelling.
Okay, bad example. Bad
Yes.
example.
Yes.
But you get what I'm saying, where it bring like that's his entire shtick is not drawing attention on himself, and then he names himself Archie Bunker.
Yeah. Although counterpoint, I mean, you're a millennial who's a little more with it, but let's be honest, Gen X is sort of like the last generation that really is getting those jokes, because if I rolled any of those names out to my kids, they'd be like, "Who the hell are you talking about?" I was like, "Yeah, okay."
I was going to say those shows were off the air when I was watching them. So yeah. It's true. Like, like my kids aren't going to know who the hell Archie Bunker is or the Jeffersons. Or like if I started going
and that's a missed opportunity. Wouldn't it have been great for him to be named like Lamont Sanford or something like that?
Lamont.
That would have been great.
So, out of all the sections, because this is divided up, which one was your favorite? We got the client, we've got the lawyer, the expert, the brute, and you got the beginning, the kills, and then the epilogue.
I will honestly say, as much as I love that fight, as much as I love Tilda Swinton as an actress, and she really brings it in that scene. It's so
everything
good.
She does. She's so good at what she does.
Oh my gosh, it's just, and it's so, she makes it look so easy.
It's effortless.
It's just something special. But I would have to say, in all honesty, just because I love him as an actor, Charles Parnell as the lawyer is so good in that scene. And he plays a choking to death on your own blood so uncomfortably well. Like, it really bothered me. Like, it made me so uncomfortable watching
when he's trying to grab the phone and he knows he can't.
And then with Carrie O'Malley, as much as we, went on about like how you need to excise that, like, she's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And so if this were a short limited series, that would be my favorite episode, probably. That's the way I would look at it.
Complete agreement with you. What Parnell does and the character that he plays, just the personality that Parnell brings to it, the over-talkative, over-educated individual, where he thinks he can talk his way out of it. He's a lawyer. He was Fassbender's former law professor. Like he thinks he knows Fassbender. He thinks he can talk him out of this. And he's probably never lost a case. Never lost a case, never let down a client. And in the courtroom, and then outside of the courtroom, he says, he's like, this is unprecedented. This has never happened before, about failing on hitting a target. Like, even Fassbender, his character, said that he was batting 1,000. This is, and like after he missed, he's like, well, that's new. But the lawyer is, you could see, like, even though he's scared, you can see the confidence in his face, and he won't shut up. He will not. It just great character work.
And a lot of credit to the director for working with his talented cast member to get that moment from him. And I think that, because this is a director focused podcast, but the thing is, it's almost reductive to talk about where do you see Fincher in something like this. It's like, the color
like,
palette.
See Wes Anderson,
Yeah, exactly. Like, you could have dropped me into this movie with no promotion and said, who do you think directed this? And I'd be like, it totally looks like a Fincher movie. And that is actually something that I was thinking about just during the opening credits, was that Fincher, in a way, is a lot like Hitchcock, because he will adapt works from other media, and it still looks and feels and sounds like a David Fincher movie. He does embody the quote-unquote auteur. He knows how to communicate to someone, and Hitchcock adapted how many things, and it's still, you walk out of it, you're like, oh, that's a Hitchcock movie, because he had that type of a stamp on it. But I actually wanted to ask you specifically, because very early on, I've heard you talk about the opening to Seven and how it influenced you and what you wanted to do with your life and everything. How do you feel about the opening credits here for The Killer? Do you feel that this is effective? Like on a scale of Panic Room to Seven, where does this fall in terms of editing for the opening credits?
Oh man, what a good scale. What a good scale from
Thank you.
because with Panic Room, like, oh, you have floating titles in a city. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's not bad. But when you compare it to something like The Game or
Mm-hmm.
Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, and yeah, seven is by far the best. Like you mentioned, like I've was a video editor for years and years and years, and now I'm a creative director. And Seven made me want to become an editor. Like when I saw that, I was like, I want to do that. Like I want to be able to juxtapose imagery as powerful as that. And it was, I didn't really take notice of it the first time I watched it. I was just kind of like, interesting. It wasn't until this watching where this was actually this was only my second time watching it, which is still twice as many times as you've seen it. And it was as I was watching it, I was just like, this has to be the same company I need to look it up. I should have looked it up before we recorded, but this has to be the same company who did Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. There was just a few shots, like the head put in a bag for suffocation was very reminiscent of some of the motion in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo opening. But I really liked that it was all the different ways to kill someone. Like that assassin would take care of someone, where it wasn't just what he did in the movie, it was showing you all the ways he has killed someone. At least that's how I took it, from the poisoning to, strangling someone, to drowning someone, to all those things. And so I thought it was very Fincher-esque in the way that I think this is far away from Panic Room, but underneath Seven, underneath Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but really up in the top third it would probably be my opinion.
Cool.
What about you?
I'm with you on it, where it's not going to topple the top of the pops, but it was a very memorable opening sequence and I enjoyed it. And it's weird to say enjoyed, but I liked it because I felt like I very famously, I hate when they do it wrong in the credits to convey something about the story or the character. I railed against the opening, for instance, of like Blade 2 for years, where I was like, that's cheating, guys. This is the right way to do it, where it's like, like you said, I feel like I've watched his body of work now. I've seen him working through the years, so that when I meet him, I'm like, I get you. I already know. I got your backstory. I'm good. I don't need to know more than this to start off with you. And actually, I got to be honest that it puts me of a mind to want to give this another rewatch, because there are so many parts that are put together so damn well, just so well. And it's just that weird struggling with the micro tightening or whatever that I'm struggling against here. But it's I love the opening. What did you think of the soundtrack from Reznor and Ross?
Oh, I'm a big sucker for their work. Like I am such a basic bitch when it comes to them. Like I will consume whatever they come out with. I there's a few things in my life where I am a sucker for Apple. Like if Apple comes out with a new product, I start salivating. And I understand that makes me a loser. I get it and I accept it. And I'm that way with Reznor and Ross. And I'm also that way with Kirk Baxter, the editor. I'm just like, dude, you deserve all your success. You absolutely deserve your success. One of my favorite things about Fincher is how meticulous he is with the editing, and how he's found such a partner in Baxter. And one thing I really like too is that the cinematographer, Eric Messerschmidt, he was a gaffer on Gone Girl and became director of photography for Mindhunter, and then on The Killer. How cool is that?
It's incredible, and it's one of those things that those are those little bits of trivia. I didn't know that until you just said that, but those are the little bits of trivia that make me respect Fincher so much, because that means that Fincher has an eye for talent and somebody that he can work with, and will say, okay, you want to earn this? I'll bring you in. Because again, as I love to point out and many others love to point out, seeing that little credit in Return of the Jedi as camera operator, David Fincher, you know that he respects that it's a tricky sort of thing to navigate all of this, and to have the empathy to recognize that hustle. I hate using the word hustle. Curse me for saying it. But to recognize that talent and drive and potential indicates to me that he's a great leader too, which would explain why he always gets great results from his cast and his crew, regardless of what I think might be better or worse or anything like that. You can tell that everybody that works on a Fincher film knows who they're working for and appreciates it and likes it, and it works for them because of things like that. And I know it seems like I'm waxing too much about one guy who made it up, up the chain and everything like that. But it is important to acknowledge that sort of thing. It's like George Lucas recognizing Joe Johnston. And, Johnston's like, well, I really want to be a director. It's like, okay, I'll send you to film school. Go become a director. Like those sorts of things, that's just a decent human being thing to do.
So I feel like this movie, there's so much more we could talk about. And
yes,
we could go on and on about the cinematography. We could keep talking about the editing. One thing I do want to say before we get into our ratings is this has more handheld than most Fincher films. And Messerschmitt said that almost all of the handheld was fake, that it was developed in post. It was shaken in post.
That blows my mind.
Isn't that crazy? Because I can usually spot that stuff, because Fincher often will, if you notice throughout his films, the camera will follow very closely the person in frame. If they're sitting down, the camera will move down. If they're standing up, the camera will move up. There's very few times that it's just a stationary shot and someone walks into frame. A lot of times that's done digitally, because he likes to shoot on spherical lens, shoot in extremely high resolution, so that he can zoom in, reorient, and move up and down for that purpose. Even though you'd think he would love anamorphic, because he loves faking anamorphic with anamorphic lens frames and and bokeh and everything like that, but yet it's all fake because he hates shooting on anamorphic. With the post shake, so much of that, like maybe during the fight I could tell, but like when he's running through his house, like looking for his girlfriend, I could have sworn that was all real handheld.
My mind is blown that it wasn't. And again, that speaks to, that's the craft. And it's not article after article talking about, oh, look what I did. Look at how great this is what I did. That's a craftsman and an artist saying, you know what? I want to try this. But what's really great about it is he shot it in such a way that that if they got it into post and it didn't quite work, that's a hedge. That's somebody who doesn't like working handheld saying, okay, if we can make it work in post, great. If not, everybody's just going to see a David Fincher movie.
Right. You're exactly right. That is too true. That is spot on, because if you shoot it handheld, there's only so much
back.
Yeah, stabilization can only work so much and so well. It's easier to add shake than it is to stabilize, but at the same time, when you add shake, there's no parallax effect, and so they had to have added some sort of it's not just like adding hitting the shake button in After Effects. like it's they had to do some real work to make it look real. But like you said, but if Fincher didn't like it, he'd be like, okay, well then we're just going to see it steady, and it'd be fine.
Man, it would still look great.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, since I'm technically hosting this one, I'm making you go first. How many Archie bunkers are you giving this film?
It may sound odd because of some of my criticisms earlier and everything, but just powered by the pure craft of it all, and just the precision and the artistry and the performances, I got to give it a 4. Because it's one of those ones where it's like, maybe I'm being too harsh, maybe I'm not, But I have to absolutely acknowledge that this is somebody who knows what they're doing and how to get what they want, and the people with him know how to deliver what he's looking for. So this is a solid 4.
That's the same from me. It's 4 stars. This is not a perfect film. This is, I don't think, it's not even one of his best films, nor is it one of my favorites, but it's a damn good film. I think this is one of those movies that kind of fell under the radar a little bit. I don't think a lot of people talk about it, but it's leagues better than Mank.
Yeah, Mank is one that I've continually gone back mentally, and I'm like, I think that rating I gave it was a little too generous back then, because then I see The Killer, and I'm like, honestly, the real floor for what I expect from Fincher is like this or Panic Room, where it's like, I don't love it, but I can recognize the skill that went into making this damn thing. Like, it's ridiculous how much skill went into that.
Yeah, I think that's a really that's a good way to put it. There was a lot that I like. There's a few that I can see why this is not a certified hit. Like, like when Gone Girl came out, you're just like, holy crap. This that captured the zeitgeist. People are talking about it. This is in your face. And I think that's one of the limits of streaming, is that, like you talked about, like, you're like, oh, I'll just put it in the queue. Like, you don't feel the need to go see it in the theater. With a Nolan film, you're like, no, this is an event. I gotta see Oppenheimer. With The Killer, you're just kind of like, not really. Like, I can see it later. It's fine. And I'll still get the same, I'll get the same perspective, or at least the same sensation. So yeah, that's one of the aspects of it. And like, hey, I love streaming. Like, I'm not one of those guys who are just like theater or nothing. No, I think there's love for both. But yeah, I'm giving this 4 stars. I think for the criticisms that we talked about, and for all the positives too. This is a good film. This is an entertaining film, and this is high up on. I think this is probably smack dab in the middle of my Fincher list. Is probably where I would put it. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for listening and indulging us in our pause of House of Emmerich, and journeying back to the House of Fincher, where this podcast began. And if you could go to the nerdparty.com and check out all of our other shows, we got something for everyone. And if you like this show and you have a suggestion for the show, go to the nerdparty.com/contact, fill out the form. It'll send us an email. That's the best way to get a hold of us. And also you can, talk to us on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. We are doing a better job of checking out those messages so that we can get those messages from you, and add your suggestions to our queue. Also, a rating would go a long way. And we are, as we talked about last week, next week we are going to be extending House of Emmerich a little bit more, because we didn't want to end on a horrible note that was Godzilla, and we're hoping to turn John around on Mel Gibson's The Patriot. So tune in next week here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.